Gamers! The third and final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom was finally given to us just a month before its release. At the time of this recording, we have circa 28 days to go, so I am working with everything that has been officially released up until this very point. I can confidently say that this game has beat the DLC same game allegations. I, like many other people, like I'm assuming you, have been waiting for this sort of arm hair raising, teary-eyed reaction to a trailer like the legendary pre-launch trailer for Breath of the Wild back in 2017. Well, we got it. There is so much to cover here, and I don't want to waste your time because this video is already coming out late since it was not released the same day as the trailer dropped. But the sheer amount of content we were given takes time to digest. I'm not going to be going over some of the more obvious things that I've already talked about in my other two trailer breakdowns, but I will be linking them out when something relevant comes up. Enough intro. More meat. Just based off of this trailer alone, we are getting a lot more woodwind instruments. I think this is on purpose because we're spending a lot more time in the sky. Elements of wind and sky and that airy sort of lightness come through in these wind instruments. We also heard the same sort of wind instruments in the gameplay demo from a couple weeks ago.
There's a branch on the ground. When you find something like this, you should pick it up. It might come in handy later.
This is not to say elements of piano will be gone, we even hear some in this trailer, but I think that the score overall will focus a lot more on these wind and woodwind instruments to sort of replicate sonically what we are doing in-game, which is exploring these massive sky islands. Then we get the shot of a ranger construct chopping away at this tree. I knew in the gameplay demo when Aonuma mentions these trees that something was a bit weird. He takes time to mention that you won't find many of these types of trees on the ground, which means that these types of trees are particular and specific to the Sky Islands. The question is, why?
You won't see many of those yellow trees on the surface, though.
And now we get this shot in the very beginning of this trailer where we see a ranger construct who we know to be benevolent, who we can even talk to because of the gameplay demo, chopping away at a tree. I have a feeling that there will be time travel in this game. We'll get more into it later, but I feel like these trees are significant to the Zonai in some way, and this all may be occurring in the past and they were lost over time and these trees were chopped down, so the Zonai lost their ability to do magic with the loss of these specific trees. I don't know. Okay, so we've known about these massive glowing etchings carved into Hyrule Field and beyond for a while now. These have occurred in multiple trailers previously, and we're seeing this one here that appears to be Lizalfos close up, and there's also another one over here. In both of my other trailer breakdowns, I have struggled to come up with an answer for these. They are probably the greatest mystery to me at this time, especially because we've seen them so many times, and I've just not been able to form a coherent theory about what I think these are, and I still haven't, and I don't. But I will say that I finally have a point of reference for where they're either taking inspiration from or could connect them to the Twilight. In Twilight Princess and the Twilight Palace, you see a lot of these sort of grand patterned etchings that glow with the same vibrancy and hue as these do. So I don't know if they're actually related, but I do feel like this is the only point of reference that I've been able to come up with for these massive etchings that we've seen multiple times in these trailers. We've got something on the board for these big glowing etchings in the ground. So here we have Hateno Village. This is all looking very familiar to us. The thing that is not looking familiar are these mushroom structures. We got the villagers wearing mushroom hats. Looks like the clothing shop has a mushroom overhaul. There's this weird mushroom parasol thing over here. There's a whole bunch of mushrooms going on. I think this is either a flashback to when Hateno became sort of a settlement for survivors of the Great Calamity, of which there were not many. I think that mushrooms are a notable way of survival. There's so many mushrooms in Breath of the Wild, and we know that there are at least 2 new mushrooms as we've seen from the gameplay demo. So this either could be a flashback to when they first needed something to unite them and a nod as to their survival after they survived the Calamity, or this could be a sort of overhaul as they have had to try and band together and survive again. A reminder that Hateno Village was built by civilians and survivors that escaped the Calamity and wanted to form a simple life. Here we see an encampment in central Hyrule, I believe. We're gonna see a bit more evidence to support this later, but I think, and I've thought this for a while, that we will need to rebuild Hyrule, restore Hyrule. I said this in my last breakdown, but Zelda says at the end of Breath of the Wild that she wants to restore Hyrule to its former glory and possibly beyond. I think that we're gonna have to reunite families. I think we're gonna have to send words between encampments and settlements and outposts and garrisons. Not only are the monsters of Hyrule banding together, but it seems that the civilians and survivors of Hyrule are banding together to form sort of a militia. It seems like the events of the Great Calamity are being paralleled here in this new event in Tears of the Kingdom. In creating a champion, we see that there are about 30 lost settlements, garrisons, encampments, and ruins. All of these places used to be thriving communities and villages. Are we going to rebuild these settlements? Is it going to be a choice to rebuild these settlements, and based on if you complete those missions, it will determine how many allies you have in your fight? I think that a big central point of this game, at least on the ground, will be trying to rebuild, trying to connect families and start new life in these lost and abandoned ruins, since I'm sure the Hylians are getting restless from being sort of confined to just a couple of villages spread across Hyrule. And since Zelda is so adamant about rebuilding and restoring, I think that this could be a huge central point of this game, and I think that the key to this will be these 30 or so settlements and ruins that we need to rebuild. So here we have Link scaling the mountains behind Kakariko Village. This is definitely Kakariko, but it's looking a little empty. It's looking less colorful. This sort of ring here kind of reminds me of the Sealed Grounds from Skyward Sword. As a reminder, the Sealed Grounds are also known as Hylia's Realm, and I really do think that we are going to see Hylia for the very first time in a Zelda game in Tears of the Kingdom. Then we have Link running through Typhlo Ruins. Again, this is a notably Zonai structure. In the last trailer, we saw that the fog had been lifted from Typhlo Ruins, and here we see Link literally walking through Typhlo Ruins fog-free. This is a notoriously mysterious area, since you are never able to access Typhlo Ruins without the darkness and fog in Breath of the Wild. And here we see him running directly through Typhlo Ruins and looking out at the rest of Hyrule. This centralizes the Zonai and the Zonai theming to me. Here we see this massive structure rise from the sands of Gerudo Desert. Could this be Arbiter's Grounds? Arbiter's Grounds was a temple in Twilight Princess, one of my favorites of all time. So in Twilight Princess, the grounds were actually home to a prison for the worst criminals in Hyrule. At the top of Arbiter's Grounds, once you defeated the dungeon, lied the Mirror Chamber, which is where you put all the pieces together of the ancient mirror, a pretty central theme in Twilight Princess. This is where Ganondorf was exiled and was sent away into the Twilight Realm. It is where he was going to be executed, but in a strange twist of fate, turned the blade and killed one of the 7 sages. If we're talking the revival of Ganondorf, I think the Arbiter's Grounds would be the place to do it. The Arbiter's Grounds is little more than a collection of stone pillars in the northwest of Gerudo Desert. The design of the pillars is different from all the other ruins of Hyrule, which indicates that it is uniquely Gerudo. The ruins are currently buried in the sand, and little is known of them. So even though all we see are these dilapidated little pillars, we know that the ruins are buried in the sand. And as the structure rises from the sand, we hear "Farewell, Hyrule King." As we see Hyrule Castle lift into the sky out of Hyrule's control. Demise! So in Skyward Sword, you face Demise as the final boss. Because of the Ouroboros theming in the logo, a lot of people are talking about Tears of the Kingdom capping the end of one circle and flowing into the next, which is Skyward Sword. Demise is the origin of all evil, malice, and hatred. But I have a feeling that this isn't just Demise straight up. I have a feeling that this is a fusion of Demise and Ganondorf. I have another theory, and I haven't heard anyone bring this up yet, but could this be a flashback from the perspective of Ganondorf? I don't think Ganondorf is going to be playable, and I don't think Ganondorf is going to become an ally. But I think that it is such a huge deal that Link, Ganondorf, and Zelda are all going to be in the same game again, and it all appears that they are at different points of time and space. And so I think An interesting way of gaining some context about where Ganondorf has been, his motives, could be revealed through essentially Breath of the Wild memories. This scene screams like creation of the Blood Moon to me. You know that the Blood Moon is going to play a prominent role in this game, a la last trailer. So are we going to see the very creation of it? Demise is the creation of evil. Alright, then we see this scene that we have seen for quite literally years, but it's a bit different. First of all, Link's hand is different, which makes me think that in the past we've gotten some super sneaky cuts. I have a feeling we're seeing something different here. We're either seeing a memory or we're seeing what actually happened. We've only seen flashbacks in other trailers. Either way, Link's hand is looking more busted than ever. This is no good. So that's the first difference between this scene and what we have seen in previous trailers. The second big difference is as Zelda is falling, she sort of begins to fade into this golden dust. This is very similar to what we see happen to Link whenever he defeats a divine beast. So whenever he defeats a divine beast, he is visited by a champion of that divine beast and he is granted a heart container and a new power. So there's something funky going on here, in my opinion, with Zelda and where she's going. And this is why I mentioned Ganondorf's memories earlier, because could this be a memory from Zelda's perspective then? We've already explored so many of Link's memories in Breath of the Wild. Will we be exploring the other parts of the Triforce, Ganon and Zelda? Another really important thing to mention here is not only is her body glowing with these specks, her hand is glowing. She's always gripped that left hand. I've thought literally nothing of it up until this very point. Her hand is glowing from within. She's holding something, y'all. I think she's holding the yellow tear that we see her hold later on. So it is my theory that Link and Zelda go down into these caves at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom to retrieve this tear. Zelda acquires the yellow tear and they're about to leave when Ganon becomes reawakened. And then there's fallout and Link drops a Master Sword and she falls, but she already has the yellow tear and she is whisked away to the past where she meets the Zonai. That is my ultimate theory for this. Just saying. So does the extraction of this tear activate all the other tears, of which we know there are 7 because of the mural we saw in 2 trailers ago? Either way, we know this situation is dire because as she falls, we hear Midna's lament. We have another shot of the desert with these sort of sinkholes of sand. And then on the very right side here, we see this funny little green house. It's kind of giving Tingle to me. Does this look like Tingle House? This looks like Tingle House to me. It looks like Tingle. And not only is this significant because we have not seen this structure before in the trailers, but in the gameplay demo, we saw a little emblem in the mini-map that had this look to it. And this is the first time we're seeing it out in the open. I believe that these are sort of going to act as shrines, perhaps? If we get to see Tingle back, I'm gonna go bananas. I'm gonna go absolutely nuts. Link appears to be exploring a dungeon. He's wearing the Elden set, so this appears to be within Elden Volcano, which we know is just spewing malice. It's giving very Goron Mines from Twilight Princess. It's giving Fire Sanctuary from Skyward Sword. I think this is a hint at real dungeons returning. Then we finally get to see inside the swirling vortex, and there are ships. We've seen ships before in Zelda, like the ghost ship in Wind Waker and the sand ship in Skyward Sword. This appears to be different. This appears to be a Rito ship. Why the Ritos would have ships? I don't know. They can fly. Not sure. We also see later Tulin jump with Link inside of a storm just like this and more boats. So this appears to be over the Hebra region where the Rito reside. Then we see Link jump into these fun little bubbles. Are the green orbs connected to the little Tingle houses? They're glowing a similar green. I don't know. Then we see Link descend into this giant tube full of lasers. Besides Link and the lasers, I think that these are really muted colors, almost like Wind Waker when you step into the past and everything's frozen in time. And then we also have Link wearing this new outfit. It's a choice, that's for sure. The actual shape of this tube could be the Yiga clan hole, that giant hole in the ground that you fight Koga over. Then we get this quick shot of a labyrinth, but I'm curious to know what is actually housed inside these labyrinths now that the Zonai have been awakened. Another connection to the Zonai that these labyrinths have, besides the Zonai swirls located on the pillars, is that at the end of every every labyrinth, you are greeted with a shrine, and it is a blessing. Inside the blessing is a piece of the Barbarian set. The Barbarian set is linked directly to the Zonai. Armor once favored by an ancient warlike tribe from the Faron region. The war paint bolsters your fighting spirit and raises your attack power. We know that the base for the Zonai is in the Faron region, specifically in the Zonai ruins. In the mouth of Dracozu Lake lies a giant serpent head. Inside the giant serpent head is the Spring of Courage. We know that Link is associated with the Triforce of Courage, so Link's connection to the Zonai is stronger than I think we know. Here we see a whole bunch of civilians fighting at Fort Hateno. At first watch, I just thought this was a memory because we know one of the final standoffs during the Calamity was here at Fort Hateno. But I don't think this is really a memory because if you look closely here, Link is wielding this fused weapon that is clearly using a soldier construct horn of some kind. This is why I really think the events of this game are going to parallel the Calamity that we were told about in Breath of the Wild. Since this game is so much about cycles and this Ouroboros theming, does that mean we are going to be sent in the past to change the future? We have seen very little Sheikah technology in past trailers, so I think that Robbie and Purah have built this specifically to help Link out, and I think that this is going to be how we travel between eras, maybe. We also see Link carrying a version of the Sheikah slate. It is hooked up, he's got the oxen, and here we have the shot that I cannot stop looking at. Is this the figure from the mural? It sure looks like it. Could this be the goddess Hylia? Is this the leader of the Zonai? Could this be one of the 100 monks sent to protect the goddess Hylia? They're very similar in the ears, the eye placement, the color, the hair. It would be really interesting to me if these 100 monks, each representing the 100 shrines that we did in Breath of the Wild, had a more significant role in Tears of the Kingdom. But something in my heart tells me this is a Zonai. There appears to be a third eye on its forehead that is unopened. Does that mean there is a connection between the Zonai and the Sheikah? Are the Zonai pissed because the Sheikah got to live amongst the Hylians once they were in shadow, but then were welcomed with open arms by the King of Hyrule to be their spies and live in harmony amongst the Hylians? The Zonai were all but eradicated, but the Sheikah were able to stick around and build technology for the Kingdom of Hyrule, while the Zonai were outcast and called savage and warlike and rogue, and people feared their magic and capabilities. Since this game really is about things circling back around, and we know that a version of Lon Lon Ranch was destroyed in the Calamity, could we see a reincarnation of Epona in this game? Here we have these muted to saturated colors again. There are also runes here right by the door that I am unable to translate. I can't tell if they're runes or an actual Hylian language. What this Zonai Golem is actually emerging from looks kind of Twilight Realm to me. It actually looks like it's in the shape of a Darknut. I know that a Darknut is a very legendary Zelda enemy that people would love to see make a return in this game, and since we already know we're getting so many classic Zelda enemies back, could this be a new variation on a Darknut? A Zonai Darknut, a Darknut construct. Fun to say, give it a try. And here we have Link looking normal, so that means this either has to be a past memory or we have time traveled, which I am team time travel. And the reason I say that is because even though Link's arm and hair is looking normal, Link still has the Vessel of Light on his hip. 4 of the vials are still filled up, which, by the way, we've never seen more than 4 vials filled up. There's so much to this game that we have no idea about. Here we have the same muted and desaturated colors as before. It's giving very Temple of Time, Ocarina of Time. We have these 2 wheels that are continuously turning. It's almost like the gear from Skyward Sword, where there was also time travel. This is another shot that I just cannot stop looking at, is this figure talking to Zelda. My big theory is that this is an incarnation of Kapora Gabora. We have seen Kapora in many games previous, not in Breath of the Wild, but in Skyward Sword as instructor. The reason I say that is because this mask looks like an owl, and it makes sense that it's an owl because apples are associated with wisdom and Zelda is associated with the Triforce of Wisdom. We also see this long white hair. Again, this is very similar to the monks we saw in the shrines in Breath of the Wild, but this is also identical to the Zonai creature we saw earlier in this trailer. And the reason I think that this is a Zonai form of Kapora is because we see the hand, but we also see a Zonai dragon head in the background. Zelda has this little tear, much like actually Sheikah do. We know that Impa has done it in the past, like in Skyward Sword. This figure's hand features a white tear. Zelda has the yellow tear around her neck. Perhaps this is the hand we've seen grab Link's hand in other trailers. Sword Shield! I still don't know what this damn ball is, but the pattern here does mimic the same pattern that is on the OLED Joy-Cons. I've seen people suggest that this is a Goron because it charges up into this ball, which Gorons have been known to do in other games, but it's very aggressive and attempts to hit Link, which kind of makes me think it's a version of a Helmasaur. But if we slow this down, and I mean really slow this down, it actually appears to be chained. We know that the Gorons in Breath of the Wild have sort of a chained industrial look. Daruk rocks it, Yunobo rocks it, so it may actually be a Goron that is just corrupted. It also appears to have an armor of some kind and is rocking this one symbol. It's not quite Goron. I can't exactly make out what it is. It's almost like the mining sigil that we've seen in other trailers that I've pointed out. Is everybody in the Elden region corrupted because of the malice spewing out of Death Mountain? Is that why we haven't seen Yunobo in this trailer? Well, we've seen everybody else besides Teba. Also, what's going on there? We'll get into it. It sort of reminds me a bit of Phyrus in Twilight Princess, aka Darbus. Darbus was the patriarch of the Gorons in Twilight Princess and was corrupted by the Mask of Twilight in that game. So is something similar occurring here. Then we've got Tulin in this little storm cloud and they're hanging out, they're having a good time. Where is Teba though? What's going on? Where is he? Is he injured? Does he not want to go on? I'm scared. Then we've got Link using the Ultra Hand ability here clearly to pull this cart of civilians. And this is why I mentioned the search and rescue missions earlier and reuniting families and rebuilding strongholds and settlements. I really think part of this game will be caring for the civilians in Hyrule and connecting them. Then we've got this sick rocket. If this were a previous trailer, I would say, damn, that's a really cool new weapon, or that's a really cool new ability. But now that we know the gameplay demo has suggested that this is the fuse ability, that must mean this rocket comes from a construct of some kind. Then we've got these zero gravity Zonai platforms, but on the edges and corners, to me, they're giving Twilight. I'm sorry. Then we've got this little mech battle between a Talus carrying a Bokoblin camp, which we've seen before, but this is the first time we're seeing it in action. Also, this appears to be a new costume as well. Okay, so everybody is decked out here. First off, horse armor. We got armor for your horse. It's horse armor. And I think that's because it looks like we're going to be able to ride our horses into battle and they're going to be a bit stronger. I'm hoping that the horses will not just perish at the sight of a farmer's pitchfork. Link is going off. Link is going off in this look. I'm so sorry. This has to be a Zonai armor set. As you can see, this is sort of an elevated barbarian armor. Instead of these like savage looking horns, you've got these horns that are more like the ears of the Zonai creature that we saw earlier in this trailer. The pattern here is like the one on the cape of the figure that Zelda is speaking to. And Link also appears to have dots on his face as well. What we know about the Zonai from Breath of the Wild is that they were a warlike, savage tribe that excelled at using magic that just disappeared all of a sudden. But notoriously, history is written by the victors. So being able to actually meet the Zonai tribe in this game and knowing that there's such central theming around this lost tribe signals to me that this tribe wants to rewrite their own history. So Nutso device aside, we have this Bokoblin on the structure here that is carrying something in its backpack. We've seen Bokoblins carrying essentially rocks in their backpack from the previous trailer, so maybe you just get extra loot and extra rewards for defeating those Bokoblins. Then we get this crazy ice creature. It's giving One Goma. We've never seen a Goma that looks like this. We've seen smaller ones, sure, but nothing like this. So if we're getting a variation on a Goma, I'm very excited about that. Link is also wearing a new outfit here. This is another new outfit. This appears to be some kind of ice armor. Then we have this very central focal moment on this yellow tier that Zelda has acquired. I think that this is why they didn't want to reveal the name of the trailer before they did. This is the first time we are seeing the physical tiers. And this is not the only tier that we have seen in this trailer or are going to see in the last remaining minute of this trailer or so. We know that there are 7 because of that mural that was first exposed to us a couple months ago. Lionels are back, besties. I know some people were like, oh, haven't seen a Lionel, hope they're not back. Guess what? Where would they go anyway? They're back. And guess what? They got moose horns. They got moose antlers. You're in trouble now. Then we get this insane reveal of Ganon that literally made my jaw drop. The design of Ganon is perfect. I have no notes. It combines several design elements of Ganon's past. The cape, like in Wind Waker. We see the facial structure, like in Twilight Princess. We see some of the garments and colorful draping, like in Ocarina of Time. And then we get this iconic screen from Ocarina of Time. Yorg. Here we have another variation on an enemy that I'm very excited about. This appears to be a Gyorg. I went kind of back and forth on this. There are a couple of other enemies it could be. I could see an argument for a Bago or Skullfish, but I think this is Gyorg. Now, we've seen Gyorg in multiple Zelda games, most notably the boss in Majora's Mask. The Gyorg pair in Minish Cap is interesting because they appear in the sky, as this one appears to be as well. So it looks pretty similar to the ones from Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass, where they would ram into the side of your boats in those games. I know Zelda. Okay, I know Zelda. I don't know much, but I know Zelda. That's Zelda. Now, this is not the first time that Zelda has alter ego. Famously, Sheik in Ocarina of Time. We've also had Tetra in the Wind Waker. She is actually Hylia in Skyward Sword. So to me, this has to be Zonai form Zelda. It's got her eyes. She's wearing the exact same outfit. She has the yellow tier around her neck. These appear to be mini Moldugas. Okay, goodbye. Then we see Riju here. Very exciting. It appears that some time has passed. She also has an orange tier earring, so she possesses a tier as well. And here we have that shot I was talking about earlier with the little rebellion Link has strewn together. We have some iconic NPCs here. We have Bucket Hat Guy, we've got the Lover's Pond guys, we've got this Goron lady who was hanging out in the Gerudo Desert. And again, I think it's really going to depend on how much time you invest into building these structures and strongholds and garrisons and safe havens for the NPCs of Hyrule. Then we have Link fighting alongside Sidon here in what appears to be Zora's domain, but up in the sky. I think there are going to be party features in this game. I think you're going to have to recruit champions or certain NPCs to your party that will have certain effects party-wise. We've seen them try it with Four Swords Adventure. We've seen them try it with Triforce Heroes. So I think that this could be Zelda trying to get the whole party feature right. Here, Sidon is wearing King Doniphan's crown. He also has the blue tier on the back of his hand. Then we see Tulin here has the green tier. This means we have seen 6 of the 7 tiers of the kingdom, if you will, in this trailer alone. I'm assuming Link has the last one. Then Link has this very slay-looking weapon. It's giving Ariana Grande from Fortnite. It looks like a fairy wing of some kind. I'm very excited to see what this actually comes from because it's very cool. And he's running towards Gleeok. So this little 15-second promotional ad that Nintendo put out a few days after the trailer confirms that this is Gleeok, but it also confirms that this is not the only Gleeok in the world, as it is called Flame Gleeok. So this implies that there might be a Gleeok of the Waves or a Thunder Gleeok. And then we see this mural expand. We've seen this mural in the past, but on the right-hand side here, we see this giant rendition of Ganon. We see Argoroth in the sky, so we get a fuller picture of this mural that we've seen before.
Link! You must find me.
So I don't think she's lost just in space. I think she's lost in time. So again, this is another point for team time travel. Put it on the board, mark it up, and we end with Zelda's Lullaby. Not to be dramatic, but this was the best video game trailer I have ever seen in my life. I think that Breath of the Wild was really only the beginning. We are going to see fleshed out story, iconic characters return, a plethora of legendary enemies redesigned, dungeons and bosses, gripping music, and masterful gameplay mechanics that allow us to explore to our heart's content, push the limits of our own creativity and imagination. Even though they're expanding this open world in such a way that goes above and below, I think that this game is really more about choice and connecting the dots of the Zelda timeline. I think we're in store for something really special. I don't even care if I'm right about any of this, I really just want it to be May 12th. Congratulations, you have made it to the end of this video, and as a special treat, you get to play Find the Funnel Cake. Leave a comment down below when you find it, but do not tell anybody where it is. Thank you for watching and liking this video. For every like, I will be DMing Matt Mercer for a shot. Take care of yourself, and don't forget that the extra $10 that you spent on purchasing Tears of the Kingdom went directly to the carving of Ganon's abs. Okay, bye!